Hello, I'm Bob Plater, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Norfolk Southern Corporation. I'd like to introduce an old friend of mine, N&W Class J number 611. She was built in Roanoke Shop in 1950 and ran on Norfolk and Western's crack passenger trains until it was retired in 1959.
It was in the shops at Roanoke that these epic masterpieces of steam and steel were designed and built. Drawing from the latest research by Baldwin, Alco, Lima, and the Pennsylvania Railroad, Norfolk and Western used the skills acquired over a century to create the modern coal-burning steam locomotive. First, a large, high-capacity boiler must be built. Steel plate would be sized and drilled. Then, run through the roller to form the boiler shell courses. When completely rolled, the courses will travel to the normalizing furnace to relieve all internal stresses. After sandblasting, these courses are fitted together and the seams riveted. Next, the shell is placed on end alongside the hydraulic bull riveter. When completed, the boiler will have a grate area of 108 square feet and an evaporative heating surface of almost 5,300 square feet. The 103-inch long combustion chamber, biggest of any 484, combined with the large grate area, allows a larger volume of coal to burn more efficiently. The all-welded firebox is completed and attached to the boiler shell with 4,400 stay bolts. The mud ring and flues are installed and cylinder saddle attached. The boiler is now ready for hydrostatic testing at 125% pressure and steam testing for leaks at working pressure. Meanwhile, the smith shop is forging steel billets into main, side, piston, and valve gear rods. After heating, the rods are forged on the 10,000-pound steam hammer. This alloy steel will have an average yield strength more than twice that of ordinary carbon steel. The rods are then machined and polished, and the main and side rods cadmium plated. The original J's used tandem rods between the main and third drivers. These would later be replaced with a larger main rod. At the foundry, steel is being melted and refined. Then, to begin the casting process. Piston centers, cylinder heads, and many other locomotive parts, including the driving wheels, will be cast here. After the tires are brought in from the machine shop and attached, roller bearings will be installed on all engine and tender axles. The modern steam locomotive incorporates over 60 separate sets of roller bearings, including all crank, wrist, and valve gear pins. In their first 5 million miles of traffic in 1941 and 1946, the Jays experienced only 2 roller-bearing failures, both on crank pins. The boiler assembly can now be rolled into the erecting shop, where a modern, rigid, cast steel frame is attached and the lagging and jacketing applied. Now the J is slowly lowered onto the driver axles. Clearances here of less than 12 1/1000ths of an inch demand extreme caution. After securing the rods and driving wheels and making final attachments, this 494,000-pound lady receives one final inspection before being sent to the roundhouse to be fired up, valve gear and safety valve set, and last-minute adjustments made. One more magnificent J, the most powerful 8-drivered steam locomotive ever built, is ready for dispatch. A tribute to the Norfolk and Western employees who conceived, designed, built, and operated her. 14 J's had been built to pull the crack passenger trains of the Norfolk and Western, like the Powhatan Arrow on her 680-mile run on the main line between Norfolk and Cincinnati. Norfolk and Western had well anticipated the increased passenger traffic generated by World War II, with one of the most marvelous passenger locomotives of all time. Through the coal fields of the Virginias, where the major source of traffic and revenue for Norfolk and Western was mined, by 1953, Jays were hauling 84% of Norfolk and Western's passenger traffic. Over the N&W Main, that some called a roller coaster, 611 and her 13 sisters averaged over 15,000 miles a month, and 250,000 miles between classified repairs. Several of the Jays ran up almost 3 million miles before retirement. Although her modern self-lubricating systems eliminated most stops for lubrication, a J could burn 6 1/2 tons of coal and evaporate almost 100,000 pounds of water an hour. The 35-ton tender was usually refilled at Pritchard on the Norfolk to Cincinnati runs. At Fort Smith, Ohio, the J passes a freight car being motion weighed and gravity sorted in the freight classification yards. .611 and her 13 sisters could also be seen heading joint Norfolk and Western and Southern passenger trains like the Pelican, the Birmingham Special, and the all-silver Tennessean to and from our nation's capital. With their 70-inch driving wheels, large 27-inch cylinders, and 80,000-pound tractive effort, the Jays pulled the Powhatan Arrow over 3 mountain ranges at an average speed of almost 45 miles an hour. Arriving at the station in Cincinnati, this J will be quickly serviced and refueled for the return trip to Norfolk. She will be turned on the table and pull the eastbound Cavalier or the overnight run of the Pocahontas back to Roanoke. To maintain high speeds of over 100 miles an hour without rail damage, engineers have designed the Jays with stiffer trucks, sacrificing some maneuverability. On January 23, 1956, engine 611 leading the westbound Pocahontas entered the restricted curve at Tug River. With her stiffened trucks and 7-foot-high center of gravity, she derailed, leaping over the eastbound main with her tender and lead cars. The engineer was killed, 8 crew members and 51 passengers injured. After extensive repairs at Roanoke, 611 was returned to service in places like Canova, where the borders of Kentucky, Ohio, and Virginia come together. Class J number 611, 612, and 613, built for $250,000 each, would be the last passenger steam locomotives built for American railroads. Returning to Roanoke, the J passes through an N&W coal yard. Norfolk and Western freights hauled more tons per mile than any U.S. railroad of equal or greater size. So well built are these 484s, the typical locomotive running at speeds up to 100 miles an hour would experience, on the average, only 3 broken stay bolts a year. In order for the modern steam locomotive to fulfill the N&W commitment to high availability, a complete self-lubricating system was built in. After being rotated on the turntable, this J will be inspected, have its ashes dumped, and be washed before heading for the service shed. Norfolk and Western was the first American railroad to install modern centralized servicing facilities. In the longhouse, or lubritorium, refilling the lubing system begins. This J's mechanical lubricators supply 208 different points on the locomotive and tender. Pressure grease fittings lube 72 points, while the valve oil lubricators provide for 12 other high-temperature points. The refilling system is so cleverly designed that the slip fittings of the lubricant supply hoses will attach only to the appropriate locomotive reservoir. 1 hour after her arrival, the J has been serviced, filled with coal, water, and sand, and is ready for another run. But time is quickly running out on the J's. Built in a year when 4 out of every 7 rail passengers were moved by diesel power, and the N&W was spending $1.55 for every passenger dollar it took in, 611 seemed doomed from the start. On October 24, 1959, barely escaping the scrapper's torch, she headed an NHRS Excursion out of Roanoke, her last passenger trip for more than 20 years.
I became president of the Norfolk and Western a little after 1980. I determined we should get the 611 back out running again, and we sent her to Birmingham, Alabama, to the Southern Railway Steam Shop in 1981, where they found they could rebuild her. It was done, and she's now better than new.
In October 1981, Engine 611, the last surviving J, is pulled from the Roanoke Transportation Museum, her rebirth, to begin 40 years almost to the day after the completion of the first J-class locomotive, number 600. In the Southern Railway shops at Birmingham, Alabama, the only remaining full-time steam facility in the United States, 611's 16-foot high outer shell will be removed. The entire 109-foot length of engine and tender will be virtually disassembled, and every inch of every bearing, water pump, stay bolt, axle, and flue sheet inspected before repairs can begin. First, the cab, flues, and remaining jacketing must be removed to expose the 8 1/2 foot wide boiler and determine if it is serviceable. Special care is exercised with the jacketing, which has been welded, not riveted, to enhance the streamlined look of the J's. Worn parts are inspected and are sent to be remachined or repaired. Others, like this water pump, are too badly damaged and must be replaced. The shops at Roanoke will forge some new replacement parts. More will come from warehouses and museums. With repairs to the boiler and flue sheets completed, replacement flues can be installed, along with the rebuilt Type E superheaters. 611's long-stilled drivers, engineered for speeds up to 140 miles an hour, are removed and sent to be machined. Skilled workmen will ensure that she is rebuilt to the same exacting specifications that governed her building in the shops at Roanoke. With her roller-bearing axles back in place, she is now ready to be rolled out and steam tested, her boiler working at a full 300 pounds of pressure. Now, final assembly begins. 611 is given a new, lustrous black coat, and her signature, the Tuscan red stripe, is brought back to life.
N&W Class J number 611 had 13 sisters, and together they were the finest fleet of passenger reciprocating steam engines in the world. And 611, the only surviving member of that family, is the finest steam passenger engine which exists today. And I'm real happy that the 611 is back running where she belongs.
I'm James Beislein, General Manager, Steam Operations, Norfolk Southern Corporation. I run all the steam excursions that we have. We've been running for 20 years, and we run about 100 trips a year now and handle maybe 75, 80,000 people during the summer excursion season all over the southeastern United States and the Midwest. On these trains, we have people all over the United States here. Retired rail people and others who have come in from California, from Canada. Last year on one of the trips out of Tennessee, we had people from 37 states on one weekend. Many more even were watching. Well, it gives us a wonderful feeling because of the great happiness that's obviously expressed and joy in the faces and the eyes of these people. It's an extremely gratifying thing. It's good public relations for Norfolk and Southern, but it's also a wonderful thing to give the American people, old and young, the opportunity to relive their heritage of the steam locomotive.
And that heritage can be no better represented than by Class J locomotive number 611. She has been declared by Governor Charles Robb of Virginia the high point of steam-operated railroad motive power in the state and in the nation. And in 1984, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers designated Engine 611 a National Historic Mechanical Engineering Landmark.
My name's Frank W. Collins. I'm a Division Road Foreman, Norfolk Division, N&W Railway at Crewe, Virginia. Special assignment as engineer on the N&W Class J 611 locomotive. I've been with her almost continuously since he was been rebuilt. This is his third year. But I started out as a fireman in early 1947. And fired steam, was promoted engineer on steam power. And then we ran and fired steam up until the late 1957.
All around on the two-main line.
Well, I worked with diesel for a while as a locomotive engineer.
Southern Track 501,
I would compare with driving an 18-wheeler to driving a Cadillac. The gauge in the Cadillac. You actually run a steam engine. It responds to what you do. With a steam engine, you adjust the power on it. It manufactures its own energy. Takes cold water, makes steam, and then it's up to you to use it correctly to get the right power out of the locomotive. Well, when you crack the throttle on a steam locomotive, you know something's going to happen. When you feel like you're working in harmony with the machinery that you got, then it's a good feeling. You know you're getting everything out of the locomotive that was built into it. Well, as long as Mr. Clater decides to run it and he's satisfied with my performance, I'll stay with it. Tickle to death. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Wouldn't go back and change a thing.
Even in excursion service, 611 must make periodic stops for maintenance. Any water accumulated in the main bearing journal boxes must be drained. The oil levels are carefully checked and are refilled as needed.
There was water there. Take your equalizer off, raise the engine up, roll it.
Inside the cab, the grates are shaken to release the accumulated ash. This ash is then removed from the firebox. A coal car is brought alongside and coal is loaded into the tender by crane. The sandbox, a feature steam locomotives share with today's diesels, must also be refilled. A pump truck from the local fire department replaces yesterday's water tower. Special fittings have been installed on 611's tender to accept the standard fire hose. Finally, engine 611 will be given a thorough cleaning before continuing on her way. While soap and water are used on our sleek exterior, her exposed wheels and drivetrain are pressure cleaned with a kerosene mixture.
Hi, I'm Doug Vine, Master Mechanic for Norfolk Southern Steam Department. This is one of our two steam-driven air compressors. We use steam from the boiler to make air for the air brakes and the accessories on the locomotive. This is the main cylinder. Steam enters at the top to the valve chest here and is distributed to the front or the rear of the piston as required. This drives the locomotive. Power from the cylinders is transmitted to the main rod, back to the main driving wheel, then distributed by the side rods to the other driving wheel. This is the Baker valve gear. It controls the amount of power developed by the locomotive, which is done by the positioning of the valve. It also allows the locomotive to be reversed. This is the power reverse cylinder. It controls the valve gear. It's controlled by a lever up in the cab of the locomotive. This is the injector, is one of the two devices for feeding water to the boiler. We have a feed pump also, which is located on the other side of the locomotive. Continuing our tour on the fireman's side of the engine, this is the cold water pump, the first step in the boiler feed pump system. These are our two steam-driven turbo generators. They supply electrical power for the locomotive headlight and other electrical systems. This is a small two-cylinder steam engine that drives the stoker that feeds coal into the locomotive firebox.
Little steam exhausting from her boiler and the almost noiseless running of her roller bearings, 611 seems to use little of the 5,100 drawbar horsepower available to her at 40 miles an hour. This Class J, the 387th locomotive built in the N&W shops at Roanoke, today incorporates identifiable parts from 11 of the other 13 J engines. As 611 glides effortlessly across the Midwestern rails, it is easy to see that she was built for far more challenging tasks. On one test run, Engine 610 pulled 16 passenger cars weighing 1,025 tons at 110 miles an hour. With her pistons changing directions 18 times a second, her small 70-inch drivers turned a remarkable 540 revolutions a minute. preservation and rebuilding of engine number 611 is the result of prodigious efforts by individuals like O. Winston Link and Robert B. Clater, who recognized the elegance and unique achievements of this Class J locomotive. As we marvel at the beauty and strength of the engine that pulled America's last fine steam train, we also recognize the contribution of the Norfolk and Western Railway to steam-powered railroading in America. This railroad that hauled the second load of coal it carried by burning the first had a loyalty to steam outliving any other major American railroad. And from that magnificent and exciting era when steam ruled the rails, we have been left with an outstanding living legacy. Class J engine number 611.